The presenting sponsor for OnEducation is Classcraft. We're so excited to announce Classcraft's new story mode, which makes it easy for educators to harness the power of stories. But that's not all. Have you ever wanted to see yourself as a character in a story? Now teachers and students can create their custom game avatars and see them come to life on an augmented reality poster. To learn more about Classcraft's story mode and the new AR experience, simply visit classcraft.com.
I really think for anybody that presents at something like ISTE, if they can keep that in mind, what are the practical takeaways that people can plug into their classes tomorrow?
All right, everyone, we are here with the man, Matt Miller. How's it going?
It's great. It's great. Appreciate you guys having me on the show.
So, I have no doubt that a lot of people who are listening to us know about you and whatnot, but let's do it anyways. Give us the Matt Miller, where you're from, what you do, and all that fun stuff.
Of course, yeah. So my name's Matt Miller. I'm from Indiana, taught high school Spanish for 11 years and absolutely loved it. And at some point along the way, I decided that my textbooks weren't totally serving me and my students the way that we hoped.
Yeah.
So we ditched them. And for the last 5 or 6 years, it's been my mission to figure out what does it look like if we don't just teach, chapter by chapter through the textbook. So I've written a book, Ditch That Textbook. I have a podcast called the Google Teacher Tribe Podcast, and get to work with teachers and help them to wrap their brains around all of that too. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, I had no idea. Until I looked into you, I knew about you.
Yeah.
I didn't know the backstory that you actually were a Spanish teacher. So
Yes.
we have that in common.
Right.
So here at ISTE, what types of sessions are you putting on, or where are you going to be speaking?
Oh my goodness, I'm kind of all
Everywhere?
over the place. Yeah.
Maybe highlight a few of them.
And
Tell us.
Yeah. I'm doing a variety of sessions, a handful of them on G Suite, on Google Tools. I'm real big on finding creative ways to use them, like outside of the box of what people usually use. So often I think we get that fixed mindset of Google Docs is about writing essays, and Google Slides is about doing presentations in front of the class. But you start to dig into some of the cool stuff that Google Slides can do, and it gets really exciting really fast. So I'm doing a session on how you can use Google Slides to create what's almost like Instagram stories.
Very cool.
You know how people are excited about Instagram stories and watching people's stuff, and a lot of students use it. And of course, my teacher brain's always on, and I'm going, I could use that. And but of course, not all kids have access to Instagram. So, and most of them probably wouldn't want to post their classroom stuff on their personal Instagram anyway.
No, of course.
Yeah. So I created a Google Slides template that mimics the Instagram story. So now you can ask an essential question like, in Romeo and Juliet, what would Juliet's Instagram story look like in Act 2? That's kind of a juicy, essential question,
Yes.
Sure.
And then so now if kids are used to doing Instagram stories and Snapchat and stuff, then they tell the story through images and short videos and stuff. And so I'm doing a session on that. People can actually get the template for free at ditchthattextbook.com/Instagram stories.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's one of them. I'm doing something on Google Drawings, and I've got a really cool panel that's kind of based around the whole idea of Ditch That Textbook. Because Ditch is an acronym. It's about teaching that's different than what kids see in other classes.
Yeah.
Innovative, trying new things. It's tech laden, finding ways that technology can be meaningful. C is creative, finding that spark of creativity, and then H for hands on. So we're going to do a panel on what does teaching look like, practical examples and real talk about what is it like when you teach when it's different, innovative, tech laden, creative, and or hands on. And so that's kind of like the whirlwind, in a moment of some of the things that I'm excited about here.
I think that's the most important part of coming to tech conferences, when you can go to a session like exactly what you're describing, where I can leave that session. I already know specific examples. I have some templates, some things to be able to go ahead and use in the classroom.
Right.
Be really excited about modifying to fit whatever I'm actually working on, or even just get those spark ideas of this may look like this, but here's a variety of ways that you could reuse this.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. Those are always the sessions that have always attracted me. I like to have a conversation, sometimes with individuals or a small group about the big picture of like, what could it look like? But when I go to a session, I want to be able to walk away.
Say, absolutely.
This is what I'm going to try. And even if their example isn't exactly the way I want to do it, I have enough vision to think, if they're doing it this way in this class, I could totally do this in a Spanish class. Or I could encourage a 4th grade teacher to do this. Or I could take an AP bio teacher and suggest them to do it this way. And I really think for anybody that presents at something like ISTE, if they can keep that in mind, what are the practical takeaways that people can plug into their classes tomorrow?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I think that's huge.
Well, because all 3 of us do PD. Like it's our full-time job pretty much. And so I'm always concerned about what people are taking away. And that's a problem when you come to conferences because it's like a hype train. It's like you come to ISTE and it's a hype machine. You're just geeked up.
It is.
But I mean, there's one thing to leave excited, but what do you do the next day is really always the question, right?
Yeah, it's and that's hard. It's like I've heard lots of people talk about the ISTE letdown. And with the ISTE letdown, it's like you get on the plane and you start to go back, or you get in your car and you start to go back and you're like, oh, there were all of these people. I always feel like at the ISTE conference, it's like my entire Twitter feed is walking up and down these halls. And you walk away from that. And now it's like there's that emotional letdown. Yeah. And I have a huge sack of ideas thrown over my shoulder like Santa Claus. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this bag of ideas, And all of a sudden it starts to get real and there's this huge letdown. And I think it's so easy, just like what you were saying, Mike, like it's so easy to not take action because there's that emotional letdown and you're like, I've got all of this stuff. Where in the world am I even going to start?
Where do I go? Yes.
And I heard somebody give the greatest definition of overwhelm once, because that's really the feeling, isn't it? It's overwhelm.
Sure, absolutely.
And they said overwhelm is not the problem of having too many ideas. Yeah. It's just not knowing where to start.
Yes.
And so if you pick that one that you think could have the most impact, go through your sack of ideas, and find the one that you think can have the most impact. And then you start working on that. Maybe you leave the rest of them in the bag.
Yes.
And then eventually, after you get to a stopping point with that other one, maybe you pull something else out. But I've fallen prey to, I'm going to play with all of the things. I'm going to get all the toys out of the sack and I'm going to play with them. And it overwhelms my students and it overwhelms me. And it's just not good for anybody. So, I think there's something to that.
Yes.
You have a new book.
Yes,
coming
I do.
out.
It's out, yeah.
It's out.
Rad.
For
Let's
a few weeks.
Talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. So this one's called Don't Ditch That Tech. We had Ditch That Textbook first, then we had Ditch That Homework. And so now we're doing Don't Ditch That Tech. And the idea behind it isn't just you have to use tech. It's kind of focused around differentiated instruction.
Good.
We have all of these, unique learners, and they all have their natural proclivities towards certain things. And instead of suggesting that teachers make 100 different versions of the same assignment, it's like, how can we use the nature of technology and how it can sort of differentiate for us if we know how to harness that power.
Yeah.
And it digs deeply into like Carol Ann Tomlinson's work on differentiated instruction. And so we take that at our heart and we go, how can technology help us meaningfully do that?
Yeah.
And so we have lots of tools and we have lots of suggestions. We have full written out lesson plans and charts. There's actually a whole quiz that you can take to figure out what kind of teacher you are on this, tech differentiation scale. Sure. And then the book is differentiated for the people who read it.
No way.
So you can go, so you can go to the parts that apply to you, and then that way the book is actually differentiated to you. I am super excited about it. I got to write it with 2 other educators from Indiana like me. One's a college professor, one is a high school social studies teacher, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah. So this seems like a perfect type of book to use for professional development, like through a book study, but really then start. A lot of times book studies are like these philosophical ideas, which are great and inspirational, but it's nice when you read something and then you can start using that to apply things to your classroom immediately. Just like we're talking about takeaways from sessions, I love those takeaways from books. Yeah. And then you're differentiating the book to make sure that it fits exactly what my style is. Because too many times I think people are trying to emulate what someone else has done, but every teacher is so different, their own personalities and styles, and it's super difficult to do that.
It is.
So it's nice that you have that kind of built into your book. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like with people that I've talked to that differentiated instruction sometimes is kind of a mystery. It's like we like the idea of it. It's buzzy. It's like a buzzword that people love to use.
Yeah.
I remember my wife and I used to joke when we were going into teaching interviews, we were like, throw in the word differentiator.
100%.
Yeah, and it's like nobody
check.
really knows what it is, but if we say it, it sounds really
awesome.
good.
Exactly.
Yeah, but now we're kind of like pulling the veil off of it to some extent,
Yes.
and trying to give people practical things that they can use. And so,
Oh,
super
man,
excited
love
about
it.
that.
Perfect. Matt Miller, thanks so much, man.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to On Education. My name is Mike Washburn. My co-host is Glen Irvin. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Glen is at Irv Spanish on Twitter. I can be found on Twitter at Mr. Washburn. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/oneducationpod. We're also on Instagram at oneducationpod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we'd be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or on the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Classcraft, for supporting us. Check out classcraft.com/oneducation to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome. See you soon.